Welcome to the RSP Boiler Room. I'm Matt Waldman with the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. Today we're going to take an extended look at Florida State running back Dalvin Cook. And we're going to look at several plays of his that profile him as a runner. We're going to see facets of his vision, his cutback ability, his burst and speed, as well as his functional power and where maybe that power might not project quite as well to the NFL. But we're going to look first at one of my favorite plays that I've seen thus far in several games of his. This is an I formation set to tight end where he's going to work outside the right tackle and the outside tight end. And the way that he sets this up is really nice. And it's an intelligent play by Cook. Let's get it started. We're going to watch this all the way through and then we're going to break it down from a different angle. As you can see, one good cutback, another good dip. Run through a wrap. Gains, I think, about 20 yards on this play. Finishes reasonably well. But let's look at this from this angle, and you're going to see really the intelligence of Cook on this play. And it begins right about here, and really even a little bit earlier. Say it begins right here. He wants to work inside this fullback, in between the fullback and the tackle, get that crease. He doesn't want to dip that outside, and he doesn't want to do it too early if he were to dip outside, because he knows that this fullback hasn't gotten close enough to the linebacker. So he needs to set up this linebacker, set up his fullback's block. The way he does this I love, because when you jump cut to set up a block, it forces the hand of the linebacker, because this is a very quick explosive move, and he jump cuts to the outside, but then watch him cut his stride and take shorter steps and squeeze to that outside, so that with his pads downhill to the outside, his hips were downhill to the outside on this play, everything was pointed outside. So it forced the linebacker to the outside. And he takes just one more step before his second step is another jump cut. And it's a nice jump cut right around his fullback's block. And once he lands with this left foot, he plants and bends back to the outside. And look at the bend of the hips. You've got the hip and the knee bending down on the inside. He really drives off that inside leg to bend around this inside pursuit, beat the safety around the corner, and then it's him one-on-one with the cornerback. And look at him run through the wrap there. This is all within 6 yards. And then it's really just working up the sideline in the flat and finishing physically against the defender. Gain of a little over 20 yards. Let's watch it full speed one time. Right here. All right. See it in all its glory here. I mean, he just makes that look easy. That's reminiscent of Matt Forte. When I saw, Matt Forte back in the day in his prime, be able to layer moves like this, and work around people with that kind of agility. That's what makes Dalvin Cook one of the better prospects at the running back position in this draft class. You want to see speed. This is a good example of acceleration and speed. And it's a 2nd and 5 tight wide receiver formation. You're going to see dual wing backs here in this pistol. It's a 4-3 set. And this line is going to slant to the right to offer a cutback lane. It's going to be closed off by the left tackle, collapsing this defensive tackle so that there'd be an opening between the tight end and the left tackle for Cook to cut back to, press to the right, cut back to the left, and get inside that tight end. But what happens here forces Cook to bounce it outside and head east-west to the opposite flat and have to turn a corner against a safety and a linebacker coming down the line unblocked. This is a play that demands acceleration, and Cook gives every bit of it right here. See the penetration here? He sees it before that. If you look at where he sees it right here. Watch him. He's heading forward, but watch him take that next step. And we'll see if we can do it one more time here to show that step. See him take that bend as soon as he gets the ball. He knows he has to head outside immediately because he can't press over to this part of the line without getting tackled. So he's got to immediately bounce this and hope maybe he can fake out this outside linebacker over here to get back inside. And you can see the little bit of a jab move, and he knows that he's not going to be able to get inside there, but it freezes this linebacker and the safety. And now it's a race between Cook, the linebacker, and the safety. And look at Cook get that corner on the linebacker and then just get downhill on that safety. And he beats the safety. I mean, he runs through this wrap to his foot, but the acceleration gets him that angle. And at this point, he just splits the cornerback and the safety coming from the opposite side. Turns this into a 16-yard gain on what really, without that speed, could have been a significant loss behind the line of scrimmage. That's what good vision paired with excellent acceleration and speed can do for you. If the last play was an NFL display, and this play is just an NFL style play in terms of decision making for a running back, it's something that I look for running backs to make in these scenarios when I'm watching the college game, because I don't care about how much yardage is gained. I care about the decision making involved. This is only a 3-yard gain, but when we watch this play unfold, it looks like a fairly nondescript play, right? If you're a fan, you're like, whatever, he gained 3 yards, all right. So sometimes they have gains like that. But when you're actually studying an NFL prospect, you have to see what's going on beneath the surface of this play to get a better feel for it. First of all, Cook's playing against 9 players in the box. This is an advantage for the defense right away when you have 9 players in the box. And you can see the penetration right here. You have the penetration coming around the right tackle. The right guard. Coming around the right guard here. He's getting to the backfield. You have penetration coming around the left tackle inside the fullback. And this prevents any type of run towards this double team inside, which was what the design of the play was to be. It means that Cook has to bounce outside immediately. And he knows that when he bounces outside here, he's likely going to have someone around this corner that he's going to have to contend with. And as he makes that next step, you can see there's a middle linebacker. You've got a cornerback who's going to be shooting up here. If he widens this, the linebacker's got the angle. And then he also gets the support of the cornerback. His only real choice is to get downhill. A lot of running backs with speed or acceleration that isn't even as good as Dalvin Cook's don't realize this. There are pro running backs who are in the game today who still don't realize this consistent enough, and it's a reason why they're not starters or they're teases for fantasy owners who think that they're someday going to get it. CJ Spiller is a good example of that. Reggie Bush took a while to figure this out at times. Lawrence Maroney never figured it out. But see that cut right back inside? Gets right back inside that linebacker. Now he gets wrapped just before the line of scrimmage and he has to fall forward. And his knee's going to touch just where the ball's about 3 yards downfield. Not a big gain, but it prevents a loss, because otherwise, if he doesn't cut inside here, that angle the linebacker was going to have on him was going to go down probably for a 3-yard loss. So he gains 3 and loses 3 instead of losing 3. That's a 6-yard differential. I will take that every time. These are also plays that I like to watch with running backs because you want to see how they react to penetration in the backfield. We've seen that at least with one of the plays that I showed earlier. But this play also reveals it in a more extreme circumstance. He loses yards on this play. He loses about 3 yards, 2 to 3 yards on this play. But the effort that he makes and the motivation that you can see with what he does physically are the positives that you should glean from this. And I will note that you should only really look at this play in context with other plays where you see a downhill mentality. The last play I showed that downhill mentality when he had to bounce it outside and cut it back inside because he knew that the angle of the middle linebacker and the safety were going to create a loss if he bounced it outside. This is a play where you can see that that downhill mentality is still there. First of all, he sees the penetration off the center here, and it's already getting a yard or two deep as he tries to turn outside here to the right. And he just narrowly avoids that. And then look at the corner shooting, screaming up the flat and shooting for his legs. He's able to avoid that by leaping over and taking a hit, but staying downhill. And look at that downhill mentality just through that hit. It turns him a little bit, but you can see he's not trying to back up. He's trying to keep his pads downhill so that once his feet get reoriented with the ground, he can head forward and also control his body and make a move and avoid this first defender, or really the third defender in the backfield that he's avoided with this little cut. And then he's hit by 2 defenders and the play's pretty much over at this stage. But this is the type of thing you want to see, is how soon does he recognize penetration? Pretty early. Can he do something about it? Yes. When he has to make a dramatic move like a 90-degree turn early in the run in the backfield, can he also make a second move and anticipate what the second defender is going to do? Absolutely. And it's an off-angle hit, an indirect hit to his body that he's able to stay balanced with. Now he's already looking downfield here. And you can see that he can get back under control and make that man miss. And at this point, it's just nothing's going to happen. But these plays for losses are valuable. They tell you about the athletic ability, the vision, the toughness, the understanding of really how to stay square to the line of scrimmage, what the running back's motivation can be about. A lot of good positives here just from this bad play from Dalvin Cook. One of the concerns I have with Cook is his pad level. He does have a nice little uppercut with his pads, but he doesn't get them as low as I'd like to see him get them to get under a player like this linebacker. Instead, he kind of just meets it high enough to give a little bit of a shove and pop and work forward. But I'd like to see him get a little lower than he does. Maybe he can get under these and really bring it up against this defender and shed the man. And also against bigger men, be able to get even more yards when they're really in his way. Like, not just coming from an angle here across the shoulder, but if they were directly over top. But it's still a nice play. As we've seen, Cook is not a powerful back, but if he can get ahead of steam downhill and get his pads low enough, he can do some damage in the running game against linebackers and even defensive linemen. Now, winning collisions and breaking tackles is a different thing. And you're going to see an example of winning a collision here against this linebacker who's going to work from the left hash or the right hash and work inside to attack Cook as Cook gets downhill. And you'll see what I mean. You see some nice patience, though, with some stride length alterations, and then a cut downhill through that crease, and he's going to collide with 55 here. And Hill's pads aren't lower than 55s, but they were low enough that when he hit them, he got a good strike, and he was able to fall forward for 2 yards after that contact. But a lot of that had to do with Cook accelerating downhill into that contact. So you can see, not great power, but certainly someone that if you get him downhill, he can be effective. This is a holy cow moment. This cut that you're going to see in the right flat on this run that he bounces outside, gets downhill around the corner, and then watch him make this cut, and then this second one to swirl right around, back downhill. It's that downhill cut right here. Just slaloms through. That gets all those angles kind of out of whack. These defenders weren't expecting him to be heading downhill at this angle, and they're all kind of disoriented with that. They all end up like the Keystone Cops. And really, this play is about defeating angles so that they cannot get a full hit on him. That's really what he's doing here best. It's not a powerful run. It's a run that just never gives the defenders a full angle to hit, or they just are late to make the attack with full force behind their pads, and he's able to get through. What I like also about Cook is his balance, and it's he's got deceptively good balance. He's not Barry Sanders, but nobody really is. Nice catch with his hands, but watch him make this nice dip inside. Again, avoid the full angle and just spin away from whatever's left there. And then this move to set up a little inside, outside, back inside, and the stiff arm gets into the chest of this linebacker, and he's able to push that linebacker aside and spin away from that. Get downhill again. So this is a guy in the open field, has a lot of fun moves, but the balance and the ability to stay downhill, use that stiff arm reasonably well, and to avoid direct angles that are going to bring him to the ground. But one of the problems that I have with these past two plays when I start projecting Cook to the NFL is he's playing against faster players in the NFL. He's going to play with players who are better at getting angles, who are better at wrapping up most of the time, who aren't going to be making these types of wraps unless you're talking about the New Orleans Saints on a week where they are taking free agents off of the wire to put them on defense and start for the first time. Most of the time, Cook's going to get brought down because he doesn't have this kind of power, and I think that his creativity and imagination are good, but I don't think he's going to generate these types of runs on a consistent basis, like this move right here. This move he'll be able to make probably. He can, if he can defeat one angle. But then against 55, this 3-step inside, outside, back inside move, and then actually be able to stiff arm the defender after he's wrapped head on like this and get through, he doesn't have that kind of NFL power. I don't see it happening for him like this. So while I see big playability in Cook, and I see some skill with his agility, speed, and vision to make plays and move the chains, I'm not sure that power element, even as he adds weight, is going to be a massive difference for him in the NFL. And he could be a lead back. I just don't know if he's going to be a great back. Even with some of my doubts, Dalvin Cook is probably one of the safest bets of this class in terms of being a quality NFL prospect at the running back position. He has some things to work on with pass protection, which I could detail a lot more at another time. And that power element isn't quite there for him. I think he's average in terms of power at the NFL level, maybe even slightly below average, depending on the types of runs that you put him in. But I think that teams will understand where he really works best, and they'll use him as such most of the time there. He's a player that I think can give a team an exciting element on the perimeter as a big play threat, but also a guy who can get it done for you between the tackles, especially if he adds some of the weight and he can be really a true 215, 220 pounds and keep that burst. If he can do that, there's a lot of potential here. If he's really more of a 198 pound to 208 pound runner, and you're going to use him more as a speed element to your offense, then he can give you that lead back upside, kind of like a Giovanni Bernard. I don't see the Jamal Charles comp or the Chris Johnson comp or the Reggie Bush comp. I think he's a little bit of a higher grade player than Giovanni Bernard, which makes him a potential starter and a good one, because I think Giovanni Bernardi could be a good starter in the NFL with the right team. And I think with the right fit and a little more weight, he might be able to do that as well. Thanks again for watching. For more RSP Boiler Room videos, you can check out my YouTube channel, the RSP Film Room, or my blog at www.mattwaldmanrsp.com.